Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Houston Trung from thetradingedge.org, and here is your weekly market outlook for September the 16th to the 20th, 2019. So, interesting week this week as the buyers took control and really surprised some of the sellers or shorts who thought that the volatility, the historical volatility that we see in September, was going to result in lower prices. Instead, we actually got some all-time highs in a couple of indices, and I think there's probably more room to go. As I noted last week's video, it was a race back to all-time highs, and we got that this week. So for the coming week, it is all about the Fed. So it's the Fed watch. Tuesday, FOMC meetings begin, and on Wednesday, we get the Fed minutes as well as a press conference after that announcement. So that should be a market moving event. Thursday, there's jobless claims number as well as existing home sales. And on Friday, we have quadruple witching, which could make the markets more volatile, or it could just be very choppy. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Less earnings on tap for the coming week. Thursday is a heavier earnings day, so do look out for that and make sure you're not getting involved in something that you do not want to get involved in. So that being said, let's get to the charts, quickly recap the week, and then I'm going to spend a bit of time this video sort of delving under the covers to look at some of the internals of the market, so some of the underlying stocks and sectors, because I think that that will serve some of you who may be holding maybe a bias that is perhaps either too negative or perhaps a little bit too one-sided. So let us jump to the charts now and go through our favorites. So we're beginning this week with the VIX futures contract, and starting from the highest, from the let's start at the monthly level here. Clearly it's a red month, right? So look, the VIX contract has already lost 23% this month, 2 weeks into the month. So VIX has been going down a lot, and this simply means the volatility is coming out of the market as people are repricing risk. What we see here in the weekly chart here is pretty obvious. We're seeing this thing coming back through the range again, right? So we had that big spike up in August. However, if you trade VIX or watch VIX at all, that elevated levels cannot stay for very long. For the reason being is that you cannot keep high levels of fear for very long, right? Just like any emotion, it's very, very hard to be scared for a long period of time. Just imagine last time you went to a scary movie. Once you left the movie, it was over, right? So it's very hard to keep VIX at very, very high elevated levels for very long. So we had, a 3-4 week pop there where it stayed elevated. Now it's coming back through the range again, and this is meaning whose long volatility is getting stopped out. So now here it's coming back, and you can expect it now to come back to these weekly lows here as we go back through that range. Now on the 2-day chart, what it's showing you here is there's actually momentum to the downside on the VIX. So take a look here, inside bar and down. It goes outside bar here. This is 1, 2, 3, 8 sessions ago, because these are 2-day charts. And we have an outside bar that then goes down. So this is momentum, outside bar down, 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 down. The momentum will not stop to the downside, as I say in this in every video. Once you begin to see how price action works, it gets a lot easier and it gets a lot more objective. You won't see a volatility begin to dissipate until a high gets taken out, right? So one of these highs, whether this bar's high or one that's lower, has to be taken out before you can begin to see volatility dissipate or get extinguished. Right now, we're not there yet, right? We closed down here. The last 2 days, the VIX lost 3.3%. Okay, so contrast that. So now you get the picture with the VIX contract. Contrast that now with the VIX VXX ETN product. Inside month for the ETN product on the monthly chart there, you can see it clearly inside month. And what we want to talk about here is this weekly chart. Weekly chart looks a little bit different again on the VXX, and we're not going to get into why it looks different because I've talked about it before in the past. But just know that the VXX is not the same thing as trading VIX futures. So the thing to note here is that here the VXX has historically, if you take a look all the way back to 2018, that's the look back period, it's popped down here, and the last time it came down below these levels, it spent a few weeks down there and it popped back up again. So that's what you're want to watch and see. When can the VIX take out a prior week's high? See this here back in July, when you get a week's high get taken out, then that can happen. Then if they can pop up, right? So this coming week, if you're if you're a volatility watcher and you think that markets are going to come tanking down, then you, at the very least, you need to see this high get taken out. So that's what you want to be watching for in terms of a level. All right, so let's talk about the SPY now. As frankly, congratulations to SPY holders. Right, you got some all-time highs this week, and this is, as I was saying last week, it was a race back to all-time highs, because we were less than 2% last week. As of last week's recording, we were less than 2% from those all-time highs. And what a lot of people, if you don't look at a lot of charts, and when I say a lot of charts, I mean having a basket, or having whether you pick the S&P 500 and those 500 stocks, or you look at all the the 30 Dow components, or some sort of broad swath of stocks, you would have seen that we actually bottomed in many of them the last 1 or 2 weeks. Even the SPY here, we had bottomed back here, right? So let's go with the high level, and then we'll get into the bottoming process. But here, right? So we have a green month now on the SPY weekly chart, right? So as we've been talking about here for the past 1, 2, this is the 3rd week now. We were trading in a range that was very, very tight for a while, right? So 1, 2, 3, even this week before it broke out, the week prior, I mean, we were trading basically inside of this week. Okay, so August 5th, that week there, even though the price had broken above, it came back into the range. So for a while, we were trading inside of this tight range. That's range trading, right? So it finally broke out on the, actually technically broke out on the 26th. That week, it actually created a higher high. So it broke above that, this inside week's bar there. I want to put that like that, just to get it right. And so we broke above, it came back in the range again, but then the week afterwards, last week, it popped back out again, and then the target was very, very obvious. It was going there, right? It was going to take out that pivot. 302.23. Why was it going to take out that pivot? Because there are stops there. Clearly, there's stops above the all-time highs. 302.23, the high was 302.46, right? So we cleared it by 23 cents. The question now is, does it keep going, or does it come back in again? And there's a very, very strange phenomenon, which I see all the time when we hit all-time highs. The first thing that I tend to see when we hit all-time highs is people tend to say, when are we going to start correcting? Right? It's a very, very odd phenomenon. So that as soon as you hit all-time highs, people are like, okay, when are we going to crash? So it's a very odd situation there, where people immediately, is like, as soon as you get all-time highs, people think we're going to start crashing. If you recall, yes, price doesn't just keep going to highs all the time, but it also doesn't mean we're going to go crashing either. So frankly, right, like with the last time we hit all-time highs here, it did pull back. We pulled back in the month of August, but this is a regular pullback in an uptrend. So take a really long perspective for a second. I know, like, if you're a shorter term trader, then maybe this doesn't affect you. Maybe you just like the markets going down because you like shorting. But from a just a small perspective, from the high there to that low, okay, that's a less than a 7% pullback. Now we're back to all-time highs, right? That's a 7% pullback in what? In a year where you're up 20.47%. Okay, so that 6 or 7% pullback is a buyable pullback, right? These are situations where, back to the weekly chart, you want to be looking for opportunities to buy, whether it's the indices or some other stocks that are even correcting even further, where you can get really good trade location. You're in an uptrend. This is the thing that people are struggling with, and are turning to sellers too quickly, is that you're in an uptrend. I don't know how else to put that on the indices, but until, frankly, it's going to be very, very hard with little over a quarter left in this year for this year to turn negative, right? It's not saying it's impossible, but it's very difficult because you're up 20% in the year. It would have to be something catastrophic to happen for this year to turn red. Now, certainly you lose half the gains and end up somewhere around here. That's certainly possible, and maybe you don't want to do that, and just you want to be more defensive. But the bias is certainly up. Right, the bias is up until proven different, and how you begin to shift your bias is by looking at the lower time frame charts, and not so low like a 5-minute chart, but a lower time frame chart where you begin to see either the buyers or sellers losing control. This all begins by seeing if a weekly low can get taken out. Right, so next week, if we expect if we want to see a pullback, then you want to see that low get taken out. And if it turns to a bigger pullback, what has to happen? It has to break down below a monthly low. Okay, and if that's going to happen, it has to break below a quarterly low. right? So we had not seen a quarterly low get taken out here on the SPY, right? So look at the SPY here. It's this year, right? The Q1, Q2, Q3, it's going up. We actually went inside bar and up in Q2, and it's going up, up. It's very simple so far. It's going up and up. Just one more, perspective. Going back here, I want to delete this 6% pullback. We don't need that anymore. We know what that is now. Here, outside bar and up on the yearly. So there's momentum here, right? So it's 2016 after Trump got in. Look, it's momentum to the upside because we had that big range when Trump got elected. People tried to short the market. It failed, right? They tried to take out the prior year's low. People bought back right away. And look, it's momentum up, up, up until you get a low taken out. Okay, until you get a prior low get taken out, you're not breaking down. You're not gonna see a major corrective action. The last time we had a yearly low taken out was there in 2016, right? But they bought it back right away. If it doesn't stay below the prior year's low, it's not a breakdown. Likewise, here, 2007, right? When we had the crash, the financial crisis, it took out a prior year's low. That's how big corrections happen, when you can take out a prior year's low, right? That year. And we had that, that 2000 sell-off. Okay, so next year, I'm looking ahead at just 3 quarters here. This is the neat thing. We have a new year coming up next year and a new decade. Okay, in order for things to kick off on the bear side, they have to take out that year's low for it to really, really fall apart. So you want to see how this year closes. That's going to be important, obviously. Do we close down here? If we do, then that year's low comes into play a lot easier than if we close up here. Because next year, if you open up here, you need to correct 20% to take out that year's low, right? So it's going to be a lot more work in terms of selling that has to happen. A really, really wide perspective is something like SPX, where we have more data. Now, I'll zoom out here. This is the yearly chart again. Okay, so when's the last time you saw a yearly low prior to the 2000 era? You have to go all the way back here. I want to delete this, delete that. There. Okay, this is it took out that year's low. This is 81. Okay, but it turned to an outside bar because they bought it back right away, just like that Trump 2016. 2016. It wasn't quite the same because it wasn't an inside bar prior to it. It was just a small bar, kind of a doji. But they bought it right back again. So you got to go back a lot of time, and this is the type of work you want to do. Is what does it look like when you have major corrections? Okay, and you have to take out prior year's lows for things to really, really begin to break down. But how you take out a prior year's low is by having price situated in a place where that's possible, right? It makes it very hard to take out a prior year's low if you close really, really high. Not impossible, but then it's harder for that to happen. Okay, so anyways, so let's go back to the weekly. We now know it's just going up, up, up. Now this is the story of the week. So if you were looking for a way to get into the trade on, let's say, I'm gonna go back to SPY. On the daily chart to all-time highs, and you're only a daily trader, it's right here. So you opened up on Monday. Things look suddenly bad, right? Because it went outside bar on Monday. Went outside bar and down. It went inside and up, popped up. So it actually gaps up, right? It goes inside bar and down. So this is a bit of a reversal signal here because it comes back down. And then the next day on Tuesday, they actually opened there, right? So it's actually a gap down, not outside the previous bar's range. So it's not a a bearish kicking pattern, but it is certainly a gap down. They sell it in the morning session, but look here. As soon as it pops above this blue line, that is your quarterly open. Okay, so there's your monthly open there on the orange line. There's your quarterly open, which is the blue line, and that purple line is your weekly open. It goes outside bar and down. It pops back up again. As soon as it breaks above this high here, this means the momentum has been dissipated, right? We talked about it already. Happened on Wednesday. So they gap up, it comes back in. You actually get a chance to get filled there. That's the beautiful thing. You actually get a chance to get filled, and then it comes back up through the range again, stopping out everyone who got short there, and anyone who got stops there, they all got stopped out, right? 302.23, and then we get the high of 302.46 with an inside bar on Friday. Okay, so now the question is, where do we go? Do we keep going forward? That's what you want to see, right? So we want to watch for that. The thing is, the bias is up regardless, because you're above the monthly, you're above the quarterly, you're above the weekly. There's no time yet to, well, you want to see what happens in the new week if you begin to trade below the weekly open like we had the prior week. But right now, they defended that quarterly level. As I mentioned in last week's Weekly Outlook video, I said, and then the email that came along with it is, if you were a part of the newsletter, is that you want to see how it trades around the major opening levels. That's the weekly, monthly, and quarterly. And you had that quarterly that test, and then because that's basically your breakout, it comes back in, it tests it, the buyers defend, and then it goes up, right? So impulse, retrace, and then secondary push. So let's go back to a lower time frame chart now, and so on the let's go back here, go back to the daily. On the 4-hour chart, on this coming Monday, you want to see what happens here, because this is Friday. Friday's action goes inside bar and down. If the buyers step in, they're going to take out that pivot high, and they're going to take it higher. If they don't, it's going to pull back in again. We can see if they retest the prior weekly open or the prior weekly open down there. Okay, so that's what you want to wait and see for the SPY. Next, Qs. We'll go a little faster now, as we spent a lot of time talking about the scenarios. So Qs, we are less than 2% now from those all-time highs. So in the Qs, right there, 1.56% away from all-time highs based upon where we closed on Friday. Month is green. On the weekly chart, right, we had that situation where we had 2 inside weeks in a row. We were watching that, it broke out of it. Now it's continuation, up. That's all you need to know. Trading above the quarterly and monthly opens. So green quarter, green month, green week. On the daily chart, exactly the same pattern again. So you're going to see the same scenarios on pretty much all the indices. I think except for the Russell had a slightly different setup. But on the Qs, same thing. Inside, outside bar down, right there. They test the prior breakout level and the quarterly open. Buyers defend and pow back up. Did not have enough juice though to take out the prior pivot, all-time highs, but still your bias is up because they're trading above those levels. On 2-day chart, all that stuff we saw on Thursday, Friday, we had that kind of big pop up and then it came back in again. You're left with an inside bar on the 2-day chart. So just consolidating right now, right? It's consolidation. Now let's move on to our friend the Russell. Russell has been is trying to play catch up here because it's had a really good month of September so far. So on the 3-month chart, let's take a big step back. What happened was that we had an inside bar that went up, right? So that on the quarter Q2 went up. Q3 actually broke below the low of that inside bar, so the prior bar's low. So it looked like for a second that the pivot low here was going to be in play, but the buyers quickly defended. So back to the monthly chart. Right now looking like a doji, right? So it hasn't really gone anywhere, even though the range is very high. So net, you're only up 1.16% for the quarter, but look at the month, right? You're already up close to 5.7% on the month, but because it's so tight, it's this stuff here, right? It's very tight in the sense that you have bars that are overlapping each other, so you're getting a lot of range, but you've obviously had a lot of range on one side to the other. So here, the buyers defended. You can see right there, it broke below the prior quarter's low. They quickly bought it back again, and now Russell coming back to the range, trying to take out that high at the very least, May's highs. On the weekly chart now, this is what you've been watching for, right? Here, inside buy reversal. That's what it looked like, that reversal. When I say, the buyers bought it back, they bought it back there off that level, right there, right? So they bought it right back, and we were watching them take out that weekly's high, and he did that. This week it came back on the range. If you recall, I made that video. I said, yeah, it did break above, but we came back on the range. You need to see what happens next, and this is what happened. Boom. And now we're very close to taking out July's highs, 159.23, and then we go after May's highs. That pivot looks very likely that we're going to take out because it's very close now, and that's just it's a magnet for traders because they know there's going to be stops there and there's going to be liquidity there. So the thing with Russell is that we kind of had a big red bar on Friday. It tried to break above that quarterly open. It tried to stay above because the prior day it did the same thing. It hit it, it traded above for very quickly, but could not stay above. Same thing on Friday. We had a really big gap up on Russell. Well, not real big, but had a good gap up on Russell up here. But it gave it all back. It could not stay above the quarterly open. So a bit, you can definitely see the sellers finally stepping in because the Russell's been has been running the hardest out of all the indices. So now with the Russell, you want to wait and see. Can the buyers hold it above the quarterly open, because right now that's becoming natural resistance. What you're seeing here on the 4-hour chart though is kind of a potential reversal, short-term reversal anyways, because it goes outside inside, pops up. So there's your outside inside pattern, pops up, and if they break below the low of this bar, well, now it's this bar, right? Because that's the inside bar. It's possible it comes back to the range again and retests this outside bar's low. Okay, so look for that on Monday. If you gap below this, or you break below this level here, then that pivot comes into play. Okay, Dow has been running pretty hard as well. Dow up 3% on the 3.21% on the month, and trading less than just around half percent away from those all-time highs. So very, very close now on the Dow. So green month on the Dow. It all began on this pattern here, right? So there it is, outside inside on the weekly chart, waiting for that to break, and just continuation now, right? So breakout here, 2, 3 bar continuation so far. Those are your all-time highs. Very, very simple to watch. You don't have to try to pick tops or bottoms here. Just following price. Once you get that outside inside and it breaks out of that range, we're going after that pivot there. Okay, so the bias is up to the upside right now with the Dow. And the Dow actually had a slightly different pattern. It wasn't a outside and bar and down, outside bar and down reversal that we saw on the daily chart. Instead, what we saw was this: opened here on Monday. This is how strong the Dow is. They're not even pulling back that deep. It opens up here on Monday, so basically a flat open, right? Right on the look at that level. That's right at the quarterly open. That blue line. You see how we had a bunch of days there we were sitting right on the quarterly open. Then on Tuesday, when the rest of the markets had actually dipped lower, it was still sitting there, right? It did briefly break below that quarterly open. They defended it right away, popped it back up, and created the outside bar. Okay, so that created the outside bar, and now we're momentum to the upside because it goes outside bar up, up, up. Momentum once again will get extinguished when we can break below the prior low's high, prior bar's low. That's this low here. So watch for that on Monday. If we break below that low, then this means the momentum has faded, and we can expect some consolidation or a pullback to retrace a bit. But until then, maybe that goes back to the quarterly open again. But even then, that doesn't mean it's a correction. It just means it's a pullback in a larger uptrend. All right. So let's talk about TSX, because for TSX and Canadian traders, we got some all-time highs this week on the TSX. And the TSX has been one of those indices that has surprisingly held up very, very strong, even though its internals have been weak. So financials and energy have not been doing great, and they kind of been holding back the TSX. But even then, it was consolidating. It's a 3-month chart. For most of this past quarter, it was consolidating in the upper quartile of its range. And finally, go back to the monthly chart here now. This month pops up. Look at that big shooting star. Hammer, not shooting star. Right, test this these prior lows here, that area, and pops back up, creating a big hammer. This month it breaks above that high and then creates those all-time highs. So it's very still. There's not a lot of volatility, but just for the year, it's just took a big perspective here. It's up 16% on the year, right? So what's it going to take for that thing to break down with only a little more than a quarter left in the year? And it's all here on the weekly chart. Inside week, up, up, up. Continuation of that inside week break, okay, to those all-time highs now. Emerging markets. Okay, emerging markets have definitely gotten stronger since that big breakdown in July. Remember that big breakdown in July? We talked about it here. Inside bar and up, got that reversal right there, and then it came down, tested all these. And did not get strong enough to test down these pivots, but certainly we had some good trades down into these areas down here. Now, big green month so far, right? So you're up 5% on EM, emerging markets. So this is the China, a benchmark for China, a proxy I mean for China. Plays. So here we go, 5% up, green month, green week right there, right? And if we take a look on the daily, it's actually just go over here on the 2-day chart. It's a little bit less choppy. You can see it's just basically a continuation. Outside bar down, inside bar right there, right? It pops back up again. Okay, so off this here, when it goes inside bar up, you go after that pivot, and now it's going straight up, going after everyone's pivots. That pivot looks very, very tempting right there, right? And then the next pivot there. So emerging markets right now with the tariffs kind of been some of the tariffs and being delayed, then right now the emerging markets are reacting very, very well. Let's talk about the only thing to watch out for here, I think, before I move on, is you still have a red quarter, right? So even though things are going up, it's still a red quarter. So right there, you're going to remain red. I'll go back to the daily chart until you can break above that quarterly line right there, that quarterly open, which is very far away still, right? So wouldn't be surprised for EM to make its way up higher, maybe take out some of these pivots here, but having a hard time turning this quarter green, because that's still it's still a red quarter. So anytime you're going to get a reversal, sorry, that's a 3-month chart, anytime you're going to get a reversal, let's think it's going to go back to having time frame alignment to the downside. You still have the month down here though, right? So it's very possible you have this mixed trading environment now where unless it blows right through the quarterly open, where it gets a little choppy as you get through the last 2 weeks of the trading month. If it doesn't keep going. If it keeps going, then yeah, certainly. But if it starts to pull back, then you can get some choppy trading. Okay. Now let's talk about XAU, because actually before we do that, let's jump to bonds, because it was a risk-off environment for the past 2 weeks, and we've seen that now with the bonds and the gold trade. So bonds had a really, really good month of August. I said, what's it going to take to turn this month red? It wasn't going to happen this month, in the month of August, but it's beginning to happen in September, right? So here now, even though it's declined 7%, we had a close to 11% gain in the month of August. So right now, all we're doing is trading inside bar. Great opportunities to the short side, though. Not saying it's not a good opportunity, but you're still trading inside bar as part of the bigger picture. But yet the trend is still up, all right? The trend is still up on the bigger time frames, because here it's outside bar and up until you get a prior low taken out right there. The momentum is actually still the downside, so you can still expect the bigger long-term traders to still be seeing this chart as an uptrend. So expect them at some point to step up if the buyers run out of steam, or if selling begins to slow down, the buyers may step up again, or if any kind of catalyst may trigger, like this coming week, if the Fed comes out and we hear their language, it may cause, well, that's the Fed on the U.S. or maybe more stuff in the ECB. It could cause again the bond markets to change inside month right now. So things, if it remains inside month, you can expect things to trade around, right? It gets choppy. So for now, though, as we've been pointing out in the prior week's video, is we had the inside bar reversal. As I said 2 weeks ago, if you get that low taken out, that's an inside bar reversal, and we got that week there. No, not this past week, but 2 weeks ago. It took out that low. It did close back into the range again, but that low got violated, right? So that means the buying momentum ceased. And then we finally got the news come out this week, and that caused us big 6% down move, which was very nice on some of the lower time frame charts. So on the daily, it's what you want to watch out for here now. It's momentum to the downside. Outside bar, that happened on Thursday. Friday, continuation. Look at that big dump on Friday, minus 2.14% sell-off. So now, again, as we've been talking about, you want to see a prior high get taken out, whether it's this one or one that's further down, before that momentum can get extinguished. There's your quarterly open. That's what you're waiting for and watching for. Okay, now we can go over to the gold market, because gold also saw a lot of selling this week. USD. Okay, on the gold market, just a bigger picture, we actually have a bigger pattern here on the quarterly chart where it's actually outside bar and up on the quarter. So watch for that. We still have 2 weeks left in the quarter. How does this bar close, right? Does this bar close like that? Does it close down further here? Because if it does close back into the range again, it's possible with the new quarter coming up next month that if it goes outside bar and up and it comes back down, it extinguishes the momentum here to the upside and come back through the range again, come back through this stuff, right? That would have been a failed breakout to the upside. So we need to watch for that as we get into the next quarter. For now, it's good enough to see that the month is red. Okay, red month, still inside of the prior month's range. Not quite an inside bar because we got a higher high, but you're trading inside the prior month's range. Momentum now to the downside though on gold, right? So inside bar reversal, we said we got it here, right? Last week, not this past week, but the prior week. Inside bar up, reversed right there, come back through the range, took out that low, right back through again. We said that was going to be one of the pivots. We got it this week. It took it out very easily this past week. Outside bar and down now, right? So how do we extinguish this momentum move to the downside? You got to take out a prior high. Yes, you got it now. You got the language. So same thing to be watching for on the gold trade It's just, look out for that momentum to begin to fade. Otherwise, you can see come back further into the range here. You're still really far away from that quarterly open, so watch for that. Let's talk about digital gold, because that is basically consolidating, doing a lot of nothing. I've begun to accumulate a bit of Bitcoin and Ethereum here now. I'll talk about that now. But big picture, Bitcoin inside quarter. Wrong Bitcoin chart, excuse me. Wrong Bitcoin chart. Let's go here. There we go. Inside quarter. That's all we need to say. Inside quarter. What does that look like when you have inside quarter trading? Yes, actually 3 inside bars. Look at that. Tightening, tightening, tightening. I don't believe in. I don't use chart patterns. The way I see things more based upon using different time frames to see the actual candles. But this would be, if you were to draw it like traditional technical analysis, they would see that as some sort of bull flag, right? That's a classic bull flag, and we'll see if that breaks out, which way that breaks out. But right now it looks like it's consolidating the recent gains. I don't need to draw bull flags because you just see it by doing this. It's inside. That's an inside quarter. That's consolidation. That's how it's represented in terms of actual price without actually drawing any lines on the chart. You just need to look at the price itself across time frames. And you see it across time frames and look at the different bars. Look, inside, inside, inside. That's all you need to know. Okay, so here the week prior, I talked about the inside bar reversal that we saw in the prior week. So when inside bar and down, maximize that, inside bar and down, popped up the prior week and it went inside week this week. Very tight stuff this week. Look, it's down 0.5% on the week. Now trading at 10,358. Okay, so I actually, let's delete this line. We don't need this line here. Okay, so now what we're seeing is a small pullback, right? So we had an impulse move from the bottom here to the top. That created the inside bar reversal the week prior. It has pulled back now, right? So if you just look, your eyes, that's a impulse pullback, and now possibly looking for another impulse move. See, so this here retraces. This might be a 50% or 61% retracement, and then you could see this thing probably popping up further. How you just see that with price is this: it goes outside bar, down, 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 right there. As soon as this high gets taken out, that means this momentum move that on the daily chart was dissipated as soon as that bar got taken out. Now you can be a buyer right there, and I actually picked up some there at 10,300. I picked up some Bitcoin. I'm already long some Bitcoin on that weekly chart, and we'll look to add again as we begin to break out and see if we see more gains. The issue with Bitcoin right now is that, as you know, it's inside quarter, and the quarter is still red because you're trading below the quarterly open. There's your blue line, right? So that has acted as resistance right now. So it's possible now that we just sit inside quarter, as we saw already in that prior chart, for 2 more weeks. Or we sit inside month, right, for another 2 more weeks. That's possible. We just sit inside this range here for 2 more weeks, and then that's certainly a possibility. So you need to watch out for that if you get into these long trades, because right now the charts are still like this on the monthly, inside, inside, inside. How do you break out of the prior month's range, right? If you want to make this a breakout, it has to take out that high, right? That's still far away. That's 12,325 with only 2 weeks left. Anything's possible, but right now you're still a little far away from that triggering, right? So yeah, that pattern has not broken out yet. Talk about the overall crypto market for a second. Total. Now we see with the total chart is very, very similar. So total chart we have, so let's back up, inside quarter. Okay, so there's your inside quarter. Exactly the same thing as Bitcoin. On the monthly chart, inside month, this actually went inside bar and down, right? So the month of August, it went down. It broke below the prior month's low. So now you might see an inside bar reversal if and only if you can take out that prior high. Very far away from where we are now, right? But if this month closes inside, which it looks like it probably will, again, we'll have to wait and see what actually happens in the last 2 weeks. You can still get the inside bar reversal if you break above this month's high, if it remains inside bar, right? If this month remains inside bar, then next month we take out this bar's high, it goes inside bar reversal back to the upside. Weekly, very tight stuff. Okay, so look at that. That's tight trading. You know, this is why, as I've been saying, I'm not getting too active with cryptos, because it's very, very tight trading right now. It's consolidating. It's how you can lose a lot of money or get frustrated if you try to trade it too low of a time frame or the wrong time frame, and you just get chopped up, right? Because when you see this kind of, I call it range trading, or it's tight. What I mean is that you have bars that are overlapping one another, right? They're overlapping, and it's not, there's no movement there, right? So it's tight. It's choppy. Okay, consolidation. Another trade that I talked about earlier, Ethereum. So I'm back into Ethereum right now, dipping my toes in there. So on the monthly chart, obviously still inside month, not different than Bitcoin. Quarterly chart, also inside quarter. Okay, back to monthly here now. And on the weekly, this is what I was waiting to see here. So finally, so it went outside bar down, momentum to the downside on Ethereum. Inside, and down, and now the momentum got extinguished when we finally broke above that high. So I picked up some here at 184.90. I started to leg into that 184.90 on the weekly chart, and also bought some more on the daily chart. Just was it today? No, sorry, it was this day here. Yeah, this day here. So we broke up. So we had the same kind of looking pattern on Bitcoin. It goes outside bar down. It breaks above that pivot high. That means momentum got extinguished, right? It breaks above the weekly open there, and it went inside bar. It goes inside bar and up. At the very least, expect this high to get taken out. Okay. Now the issue once again is the quarterly opens way up here. So what does it do? Maybe it does nothing. So for the 2 weeks, and I'm prepared for that, right? So you need to be ready for those situations and say, okay, if my trade doesn't work out, I'm gonna be quick to scratch it, because it's just gonna be chop trading, and you don't want to be trying to play breakouts in an environment where it's range bound. Okay, so you don't want to put your stops too tight or too wide, because it's just going to come get you. You need to figure out your trade location and make sure that you're okay with price going back to where you transacted it, and you have a reasonable place to get out. We think that if it goes beyond that, it's not reasonable. All right, so now let's do some bigger time frame charts, and then we'll do a quick run through the sectors, as I want to give you guys a bit of a perspective on the overall market sectors. So first off, let's just talk about the monthly chart here, and let's talk about a few charts that we've spotlighted in the past. I don't know if I shared this one in the past, but CSX is a trade that I got into this week. Very, very nice chart right now. Outside bar and down, coming back up through the range, right? So outside bar down, you've seen this pattern now numerous times in this video, coming back up through the range. Many ways to get into this chart, this trade on the intraday. So this level here, I'll just draw it. So once this high got taken out, okay, you come back up through the range. Right, so it's come back up through the range now, and the possibility is to go back up and take out July's highs at the as a good pivot. Okay, EA talked about last week, still setting up. So this is something you want to watch out for. It's still close enough to this range where you could have a decent trade if you find a good setup here around the 97.07 level, outside, inside, back up, take out July's highs. Okay, CGNX, we had a nice setup there I talked about last week. This one here goes outside, inside. It broke above there this prior week or the week prior, and finally took out that pivot high there, outside, inside, and still going up, right? So this pivot high, yeah, took it out right there. So we had the last 2 weeks, we had a good it's a 10% gain there on that breakout. AMD, interesting one here, right? So this is something to watch out for. AMD right now, outside, inside on the month. Again, still 2 weeks left, but drawing this to your attention. What's creating that inside month right now is this, so that we only have 2 months down. But what happened week prior is that we had an inside bar that popped up, it came back through the range again, and then it did an inside bar reversal this past week. It took out that weekly low, right? It came back down and took out that pivot. So stopped out anyone who bought that inside bar break to the upside. Came back up though. So we have this shooting star followed by a hammer. So now you want to see what comes out of this AMD this coming week, because if they break above that prior high, is going to be potential that it comes back up through the range again here again. Because on the daily chart, what we saw here is that we actually have, on the 2-day chart right there, outside bar down, momentum got taken out right there. Okay, at 30.84 and hit 30.85, and it closed at 30.69. So right now it's below the monthly open, below the weekly open. That's how it closed. But depending on where you open up next week, If it opens up down here and comes back up again, we can see ourselves come back up to the range, taking out that pivot at the very least. So AMD possibly setting up for something bigger, because on that, again, on that monthly chart, depends how we close. It goes outside, inside, then we have very interesting October setting up. Okay, now bigger time frame chart. Let's talk about the 3-month. So here's a couple of charts that here's one chart I shared in the past. It did its thing. Restoration Hardware. Look at that one, right? Outside bar and down. As soon as that high got taken out, right, the momentum ends, comes right up through the range. So that's a 29% gain, 29.5% gain that we saw from this high to that high. It's even gone even further, right? So look at this. This bar alone is 50%. Okay, so really good move on Restoration Hardware there on that kind of bigger time frame. So when you understand that bigger picture, it allows you to get into a trade. Look at this setup here. So we now know. So right here on the weekly chart, this week here breaks that quarterly momentum to the downside. That one week back in July, and there's a hammer right there on. I would call it kind of a momentum hammer because it closes so high up in the range, and there a break above that, it hasn't looked back since. Right, it's gone. Right. Even on the daily chart, you can get even better trade location by looking at something as simple as this. So on the daily, right here, right there, inside bar reversal, right? Because you want to be getting to things. My preference is to get things into as reversals versus always buying into highs. Because look what happens here, right? So here's the situation. Let's say you know the level is 121.75, right? We know that's the quarterly level that we're trying to break. You buy the breakout. It works for one day, then it pulls back against you. If your stop's too tight, you get stopped out on this little simple pullback, right? So use a pullback, a retracement, or corrective activity, however you want to describe it, whatever your preference is. I call them reversals, but use reversals or corrective activity to get into the trade. So you're gonna buy this high here. Why is that corrective? Because, well, number one, you could just say, yeah, you touch this 8th period EMEA, and I'm waiting for a pullback to the 8. Or if you understand the price action, look, it goes up, down. This makes a lower low. It goes inside. This breaks below that low, right? So it's inside bar and down. People actually try to short that. What you're seeing is that people try to short this. If it breaks above there, you stop anyone who got short down here, and it will cause price to break back above that quarterly level we're looking at. So you buy there, right, above that breakout high, about that breakdown low, the breakdowns high, you buy the breakdowns high, and that causes, that becomes a really good place to get into the trade. Okay, so RH. Talk about IBB here now, because this is setting up for something. It's not done. The quarter's not done yet, but here's something quite interesting because it's consolidating. It's really consolidating. We want to watch and see how this thing plays out in the next quarter, because it's outside, inside now. We're talking 1, 2, 3 potential inside quarters. So IBB now really setting up and consolidating, and maybe we see something big come out in Q4 around the biotech industry. So keep your eye out for biotech names. Okay, let's quickly zoom through the FANG names now. Longer video this weekend. Facebook. So Facebook right on the month quarter, excuse me. It is an inside month right now, so not going very far with Facebook, but consolidating near the highs, right? You're having a very good year still on Facebook. You're not at these lows that we had in January. We were way up here. Okay, on the weekly chart, it did an outside down, extinguished the momentum here. Okay, inside bar up now. Up inside bar, so now it's coming back up to the range below the quarterly open though, so not that much going on there, still consolidating in the recent highs. Apple doing a lot more than Facebook. So Apple on the 3-month chart, it's basically a green chart, right? Outside bar and down, as we were talking about that pattern, right there, it's coming back up, it's going after that pivot high there. That's the high it's going after, the all-time highs, 233.47. Okay, so Apple's really not that far either. We'll click on this and see here from where it closed on Friday. 6.73% away from those all-time highs on Apple. Okay, and we know the monthly chart is green. Okay, and on the weekly chart, you're still working from this situation here. One inside bar and up 2 weeks ago, right? And up, it took out that pivot high. See the same pattern again? Once you see them everywhere. Outside bar and down. Momentum got extinguished right there. That's red quarterly open. Look at right there. That blue line's a quarterly open. right? And it's come back up again. Took out that pivot high. So, and when we got short in this sequence, thinking Apple was going to break down after that, that earnings scare, where things look kind of bad for Apple. That scare is now gone, right? They had their big Apple announcement this last week, and the market liked what they showed. So, Amazon. Tighter stuff in Amazon. Amazon is not doing a lot right now. So, on the 3-month chart, look, is Amazon, is that in a bear trend? No, it's going up still, right? It's inside quarter and up, and still it's a red quarter, but it did break above the prior quarter's high. On the monthly chart, what's it doing? Not a lot. Inside month right now, okay? So you're kind of sitting inside this kind of balancing area here. Let's talk about Google. Let's go Google. Okay, Google, begin here on the quarterly chart. Inside quarter, near those all-time highs. Look at Google, right? We are not in a bear market here. So this is close to those all-time highs, not far from 1289.27, right? So less than $50 away from all-time highs. Consolidating right now on the quarterly level. Okay, look, monthly, inside bar and up. So Google's still inside this tight range, but it's inside month and up now. Okay, look at the weekly. Oh, excuse me. Right here. I think I talked about a few weeks ago. Look, outside bar, inside bar, goes down, inside, outside, inside. I love that pattern. Inside, outside, inside. I've shown this pattern in the past. Right there, breaks above there 2 weeks ago and coming up through the range now. Continuation, right? Going after that pivot, then that pivot, and that pivot right there, my friends. That's your all-time highs. 1289.27. Okay, Netflix. This is actually the worst of all the FANG names. So this Netflix, let's begin at the 3-month chart here, quarterly, is actually doing inside bar reversal. So, obviously the fundamentals are a little different for Netflix than the other names, but the fundamentals right now for Netflix is that Disney's come out with their own streaming service, Apple's in the game now, so they do have more competitors. So inside quarter and up, came back through the range again, and coming back through the range. So see how that plays out. On the monthly chart, it's momentum though, right? So this is the beauty is that we can just wait and see how long this momentum goes. Or the bias is certainly down right now because it's trading below the quarterly open. On the monthly chart, outside bar, down, down. If this gets taken out, that high, then that changes the constitution of Netflix. The momentum will not be to the downside anymore, or at least it'll be extinguished for the time being. Like we saw back here in 2018. Okay, look, goes momentum down, down. As soon as you take out a quarterly high, right there, a monthly high, excuse me, comes back up to the range, just stops at everyone, right? Take out all those pivots right there. So that's what we're waiting for with Netflix. So finally, let's just wrap things up now. We are going long in this week's video. There's a lot of stuff to cover, and I wanted to give you a broad swath of things to help you see the overall strength of the market. Let's go through the sectors now on a quick basis. All right, so let's do the basic materials. Inside quarter and up. Continuation right now, going after those all-time highs. Energy has bounced off of the low slightly, but it did its thing, right? So went inside, outside, inside, popped up, inside by reversal, took out that pivot low, coming back up to the range. Okay, so still inside this pattern here, where it's kind of a tight, there it is, that tighter broadening formation right there. Financials looking strong. Here are your financials. Okay, inside quarter, up, right? Those are your all-time highs up there. Okay. Let's go to industrials. Industrials, very, very close to all-time highs. Inside quarter, up. Okay, so that's the bias is to the upside. It's getting very close to those all-time highs right there. We put it in back in Q1. Tech, okay, even though the Qs haven't been as strong as SPY and Dow, look, you still are trading outside, inside, up. Right? You're not breaking down yet on the XLK. Look at the 12-month chart. Okay, you have a 31% year on XLK, right? It would take something quite catastrophic. I'll delete this line here because it's getting in our way for this thing to break down. Okay, it would take a lot to turn this year red. Go back to the quarter now. Staples. Okay, outside, inside, up, all-time highs. We're running into all-time highs already. Okay, we're going after this broadening formation up top here. Utilities also into these all-time highs. Look, boom, into all-time highs and going higher. Healthcare. Okay, outside, inside, up. right? So right now it's a red quarter. Remember, we understand that biotech is consolidating. This is still consolidating inside of this outside bar. And finally, discretionary, close to all-time highs. Look at that, outside, inside, up, up, right? So once you take a step back and you look at, all, whether it's through the sectors, you do a bottoms-up approach and you look at a bunch of individual names, the markets are still very, very strong. The underlying stocks have just bottomed in some cases, like they coming out of a consolidation period, and now we're seeing a move to the upside. Once again, find yourself a basket or a sector or a basket of sectors and track regularly so you can see the underlying fundamentals. So I hope this video, even though it was a bit long, was of use to you. As always, if you enjoyed it, please give us a big thumbs up and drop us any comments in the comment section if you have any questions. And as always, if you really enjoyed the videos and you think others can use them and it'll be service to them, please share our videos with your friends and other trading colleagues. And as always, I wish you a great trading week and happy trading. All the best.